From the News Channel 5 Network, this is MorningLine.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. Nick Beres here on a Monday. Hope you had a good weekend, and we're going to talk about the future of Nashville today. Yet another step in the process as we get closer to what Nashville Next is all about and charting the course for this great city. And so even if you don't live in Nashville, you know as well as I do, you come to this community, and the changes down the road are going to help shape the experience you have. And I'll tell you this, I hope this plan gets in place because I see subtle signs of this community becoming more and more like Atlanta. And I don't know about you, but I never, ever want Nashville to become like Atlanta. Nothing against Atlanta, but it's a nasty sprawl, okay? And there are plans in place, and it's been going on for a while, and there's a comment period for another 10 days, and we're going to get into it with our guests from the Planning Commission this morning to talk about this. Take your phone calls and brief us on it. Craig Owesnby, Metro Planning Department. Nice to have you on, Craig.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, my friend. 20 years since he worked here at Channel 5.
20 years in July.
In July.
Yeah.
I remember I just barely started here and just got to know you, and then you left. But here he is, still in the community, an area that he loves. With us also is Jeff Syracuse with Nashville Next. Nice to have you on, Jeff, as well. So you've been on this program before. Right. You've been on Open Line before. We've seen it in the news. All right, Nashville Next. Just remind folks, I kind of touched on it, what it's all about. It's the future of the city, right?
Plan for the future of the city through the year 2040.
2040.
2040. Spent the last 3 years gathering community input, coming up with a plan, and that draft is out for public review right now.
Okay, how does someone go have a look at it? Start offering comments between now and then.
You can look on the webpage, NashvilleNext.net.
Okay.
Excuse me. You can go to any one of the Metro libraries. We have copies of it.
All right.
All 1,700 pages of it. But
is there a summary?
Well, there is right there.
Okay, that's what this is.
There is a 20-page summary on the webpage. But,
okay.
1,700 pages, but the documents that it replaces are about 3,000. So there's a net gain there.
Okay, and really, just folks think, all right, is this wonky stuff? I'm going to get in there, my head's going to spin. No, it really isn't. It's stuff that really affects all of our lives. And let's get into some of the main principles. I mean, it's everything from, what I'm talking about, how we avoid becoming Atlanta. I don't know if you fellas agree with me on that or not. I have nothing against Atlanta, but I don't want to live in a community like Atlanta. I just don't.
Right, me neither.
And we don't need this to become like that.
Right.
And without planning, it could.
The thing is, we're getting to a kind of population and to a kind of density where it's going to look very different downtown.
Yeah.
In 2040, in our projections, 1 million more people in Middle Tennessee, about 200,000 here in Nashville, and Rutherford and Williamson will both have the population then that Davidson does now.
Wow.
The entire area will be about the size of the Denver Metro.
Yeah, so what you're saying is it gets that big and spreads. Does it all start melding together? Is that the concern? I mean, across county lines?
That's the big question. You have to think regionally. You have to think of Nashville not only as an island on its own, but as the center of a growing region.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the center, it's the nucleus of it, and everything comes out of it, and how we plan it sets everything else up. So, all right, some of the things that, and we'll take phone calls, by the way, 737-7587, your thoughts. But, all right, what if we come across to this point now, and the things that we're looking at, which I think are important, education, public safety, transit, all that kind of stuff, affordable living.
Those are the two issues that really jumped out at us.
Which are the two of those?
The two, transit and housing affordability.
Okay, yeah.
And when we say affordable, we're not talking about just at the bottom end of the economic scale. We're talking about at all levels.
Yeah.
The need for transit as the community grows, as traffic gets worse. If you look at a really big city, I mean, if you look at a Seattle or a Chicago or New York, the core of the city, you get around by transit. And a car is almost a liability there. And it's important to offer other options as the city gets more dense and as the price of fuel goes up.
Yeah. I mean, you think those are the biggies, Jeff?
Those are definitely the biggies. As Davidson County becomes more dense, transit's going to have to be an option. As far as comparing us to Atlanta, I think that's the biggest thing, is that we don't want to see our highways go from 4 to 8 lanes. We'd rather have alternate forms of mass transit.
Sure, which can be expensive. By the way, I'm just curious, what kind of feedback over the 3 years have you had really from the general public? I mean, and we hope for more in this 10-day period, but has it been good? I mean, you think you're getting a good cross-section from all the different neighborhoods and all that?
It's been generally very good. We've worked with a lot of volunteer groups, like the one that Jeff's involved with. We've talked to a lot of people, again, over 17,000 contributions to the plan. And I think that's done a lot to really help it be better understood by the community. Not to say that everyone's 100% in favor, not to say we're able to please everybody, because you can't, but at least people feel like they've been listened to.
Right.
And we've done all that outreach and started with the community vision, and not, knock on wood here, you know, the level of organized opposition that some of the projects have seen.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean by that. Listen, before we take our first break, and there's so much more I want to talk about, I want to squeeze in Joe. He just called in right now. Like I said, we'll take questions this morning. Your chance to jump in, your thoughts of what you think the future should look like, or if you've had a chance to look at some of these plans, I'd love to hear from you as well. Let's go to Joe. Hi, Joe. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Nick.
What's on your mind, my friend?
Well, it's two things, I guess.
All right.
What is the planning supposed to cover all of Davidson County? Is it just the downtown? And the transit situation in Nashville is about light years behind the rest of the big cities. So,
Certainly is.
you know, I see us doing great things downtown Nashville, the convention center, the baseball stadium, and all that, but I don't see the suburbs, you know, getting anything to mount anything. And as far as transportation concerned, we you know, it's a joke in Nashville to get around that, you know, in the morning and the evening to get around from the suburbs to downtown or vice versa.
Yeah.
The answer to that.
All right.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a countywide plan. And
Okay.
not only the county, but the county as the center of the region.
Yeah.
And transit in particular, looking at connections to Rutherford, looking at connections to Williamson and other counties. But the transit issue, he's right, it's huge. Some changes are already starting to be made. We're starting to move away from a hub and spoke system where, you know, I live in Bellevue. And if I want to go to Green Hills on the bus, I have to go all the way downtown and come back.
All right.
Trying to get away from that and have some routes that go around rather than just in and out. And a lot of room for change, and it's coming.
You know, I'm wondering, are we going to stay on the concept of buses, or can we look at, like, you know, again, it's money, and that's the other part we're going to have to hit on. Some of the proposals that come down, the light rail in Portland, Oregon, or something like that, which was a fortune when they paid for it back, what, more than a decade ago. Now it's like, wow, they got it for a good price back then, and that I'm sure is too expensive for the city to consider right now. But is it buses, or can we start thinking about some type of a rail system?
Well, the thing about rail is, where do you put it?
Yeah.
Where do you lay the rails? You look at commuter trains coming in. We've got one to the east.
Right.
Possibly there's a line going up to Clarksville that might be used. But aside from that, the rail lines in and out of Nashville are so full, it's tough to get commuter trains on it.
Oh yeah, yeah. The Music City Star is something that I would consider taking, coming from where I live out in Wilson County. Really, for me, it came down to the hours and the cost. Now, for a while there, when the gas prices were really high, it was getting close to the point where it really was going to be truly. I like the idea of taking the train anyway for the environment. It's a good thing. Price to the side, but I wanted it so that it really saved me money as well. Right now, with gas prices the way they are, it's cheaper for me to drive my car. It's not as good environmentally.
MTA does say that the Star ridership is up 20% from last year.
That's great.
I have heard that.
You see more stuff being built around the stops and stuff. It's nice.
That's coming. I live in Donaldson, and Donaldson in this Nashville Next plan is going to be looked at as a Tier 1, which is a focus over the next 10 years for more public infrastructure investment and what have you, to make it ready to be a more transit-oriented, walkable urban core that you can then take, because we're 12 minutes from downtown.
Yeah, which is so nice, not having to deal with traffic. Now, just so I'm clear on this too, when we have this plan in place finally, okay, if it gets to that point, I mean, how is that different than what they've been following up to this point? And then how much will the city council, the future mayors and all that have to abide by this once it becomes policy?
Well, the biggest difference is the level of public involvement. The previous plan, the one that was done in the 90s, planners drew up a plan, wonderful plan, rolled it out there, but didn't get the kind of involvement with the plan after it was adopted that we did this way. That's one reason we took 3 years to do this rather than 6 months. Most cities would just have the planners go off in a room and come up with a plan and throw it out there and maybe have a couple hearings or something. But with this one, we started with the community vision. We started by asking the community, what do you want? What should the city look like? And we move it forward from there. So the biggest change here is the level of community involvement and the fact that as this moves forward, people are involved and interested.
All right, and you did, just before we went on the air, I was asking the steps. Lay that out for them again. There's 10 more days of public comment?
Right, there's a draft plan online right now at NashvilleNext.net, or you can go to your library and look at it.
Okay.
Comment periods through April 30th. Then we draw up a final draft of the plan, put that online probably 10th, 11th of May, put that out there for public comment, and then the Planning Commission has a special meeting on 10th of June to consider the plan and hold a public hearing. But even after that, even after it's adopted, it's not locked in stone. It's meant to be a living,
evolves.
changeable
Okay.
document evolving as we go forward.
Okay, so but then once it's adopted, though, then it's supposed to be a template, a guideline for future growth, and
it's
how
a set
much-
of policies
And
that
when
guide
some
growth.
developer comes in and goes, "Yeah, I see what's in here, but you know what? I don't want to do that. I'm gonna just build whatever the heck I want.
Well,
I
you
bought
have-
the land. I'm going to do
You
it."
know, you have to go with land use policies and the zoning.
Okay, well, I
that are out
know
there.
they have to deal with the planning department, and that will be the guideline then. And is it? It's not really a law. It's a what is it?
It's policy.
It's policy.
Yeah, land use policy and zoning.
And so the Planning Commission, and they'll look at this every time there's some new development or whatever might be discussed.
Yeah. I mean, for example, one of the tenets of that plan is putting a lot of new development in various centers around the city and along the major roads.
Okay.
And then tapering it back to residential areas. And if someone came in and wanted to put, for example, an industrial development a little too close to residential, they'd have a hard time getting it past the Planning Commission. They'd have a hard time getting their zoning.
Okay. Well, I think that's a good thing. Well, we'll take a break on that note. When we come back, we can take more of your phone calls, 737-7587, of course, with the 615 in front of it first, if you'd like. And we're going to go over more of these, and we've got some of the priorities that you guys have already heard from the citizens here of what they'd like to see at the top of the list. We'll get into that and more when we talk about the future of Nashville right after this.